Hello, everyone. I'm Janet Tarantino, the author of the book Dying to See Revelations About God, Jesus, Our Pathways, and the Nature of the Soul, and the host of Exploring Everything Spiritual. Please click the like button below and feel free to share any video on my YouTube channel. And don't forget to subscribe below to see future amazing videos about everything spiritual. Today, I am delighted to have as my guest Sara Drake. But before we get started, let me tell you a little bit about her. Sara has experienced numerous different vibrational frequencies. One near-death experience in utero, which she remembered via cellular level flashback in her 40s, and another one around her 6th birthday. Additionally, she was taught through dreams by light beings, and she learned through a shared death experience in her mid-30s, plus by a plethora of spiritually transformative experiences. Her perspective of the world and our purpose in 3D reality is untainted by religious perspectives and is driven by the pursuit of being the best spiritual being one can be while in human expression. Sara has studied many paths such as philosophy, science, religion, healing, spirituality, and other like subject matter. She wears several hats such as educator, writer, social worker, etc., to make a positive difference with people and in the world. Welcome, Sara. I'm so glad to have you here today.
Well, thank you, Janet. I appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you agreed. So, I've watched some of your videos, and I can only say that you've had such an incredible and supernatural life. I'm sure everyone is eagerly waiting to hear your captivating story. But first, can you explain to the viewers what you meant with the terminology vibrational frequencies, so that they
Sure,
can understand your
sure.
experiences a little bit
So
better?
I think the easiest way to understand that is to think of music. So and the easiest instrument to use for that is a piano because you can see all the keys, right? And you have middle C, which is the tone of C at that specific vibrational frequency. Vibration, you hit the key, the little hammer, which is covered in felt for those that don't know, little trivia there, hits the string, and the string then vibrates and creates a tone. Well, lower C, you hit that one, same thing, same tone, but at a lower frequency, or high C. And that's true of all of the notes on the piano. Each one creates a vibration, but the vibration is literally at a different speed. And then even the same notes on the piano. So my perspective, a little bit of a tangent. None of us in physical form, because of the way the brains work, none of us, especially this brain, none of us can see truth. We cannot, because everything is relative to our understanding. People who get information like I do through dreams, the information's communicated by vibrational frequency. There's no words. If I spoke French, I'd hear it in French. If I spoke Japanese, I'd hear it in Japanese, etc. It is a vibrational frequency. And then all of our words have vibrational frequency, and it's personalized. Like if I was teaching a choir and I went, go out and get some black pants and a red shirt for our Christmas concert, I guarantee you there'd be different style shirts, different shades of red, same with the pants, because I was not super specific in communicating. I want a red Izod shirt type of thing, right? So even words have frequency, and it's specific to the person hearing it. So whenever we experience life and any experience, it is automatically personalized because of our own personal understanding of how things work. And that is couched by our belief system. which is developed by the time we're around 3, 4, 5 years of age, and based on our experiences and what we are taught by those who take care of us. Met a lovely young woman who, unfortunately, maybe, who knows what her lesson is, so I'm going to take that word out. It's not unfortunate. Very lovely heart. Very strengths-based, as we say in social work, looking for the best of each experience. Grew up in the foster system, and she shared a little bit about her history with that experience. And what was very evident to me as an empath, even though her words said, oh, I am grateful that experience, I learned I mean, it wasn't great, I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but I learned so much, and I learned what not to do and all of these things. But every once in a while, she would, as she shared her holiday experience, she said she had this friend, and she was so surprised that they loved her. And I could feel that her heart was blocked, because even though she consciously, which is only 5 to 15% of our thoughts, according to research, even though she consciously believed she was loved and she could love and had all these wonderful experiences to look forward to and all of that, her heart was saying, I can't trust people. And that's because of those early childhood experiences where, obviously, otherwise she wouldn't have been in the foster system, the adults or the caregivers in her life were not trustworthy. They did not take care of her needs. So all of these beliefs that all of us develop when we're young influences our interpretation of how this world, the 3D world, works. But all of it's vibration. We change it according to our beliefs, which are all unconscious. If you want to see a cute movie, Inside Out and Inside Out 2, which I haven't seen, but I think it just carries on the theme, talks about how we develop these core beliefs that influence how we relate to the world. Religion does the same thing. We are given a structure if we are raised in a religion, or even if we're not, it's just a different structure. And that develops our belief system, and we'll either rebel against it or embrace it. It will influence our life, but we're not aware of it. So vibrational frequencies are all the possibilities, just like on a piano. And then there's a lot more frequencies than what are on the piano in terms of musical notes. There are, I don't even know how many frequencies. I think, I haven't counted, but I've been on a lot of different ones. Since I'm writing my book, Taught by the Light, the educational frequencies, which is a number of different frequencies. It's almost like if I'm going to be learning math, and I was a very good mathematician once upon a time when I was young, that's several frequencies, depending which way I'm going to go in math, that I'm given information on. If I'm learning about people, that's a whole lot more because there's so many aspects, but it's slightly different, still in the overall educational frequency, but it's a different frequency than learning math or learning physics, for instance, because quantum physics seems to have a lot to do with how this world works on the atomic and subatomic level. But learning hearts, which has in the last, I think about 30, 40 years ago, they started studying the heart. And if you define the brain as a cluster of neurons that can operate with each other, but independently from the rest of the body, the heart is also a brain, but it correlates to compassion and not feelings that we think about. Oh, that person's angry. Not that kind of feelings, but the feelings when your heart gets full of joy, those frequencies. And then they've also studied the gut, which they say is also a brain with more neurons in it than the brain between our ears. That's intuition. So if you're feeling unsafe, people who are listening to this video, when you're feeling unsafe, most people, not everyone, but most people will kind of, I don't know if you can see it, let me stand up, kind of do this, cover this part of their body, because that creates another barrier to that gut brain, which is intuition. That's why they call it a gut feeling. So, except we said that before we actually knew the science behind it. So it's very interesting. We perceive different vibrational frequencies through all three. It's all information, and how we interpret it is based on who we are and how we understand how the world works.
Okay. And would you say that the vibrational frequencies relate to your NDEs as well in the shared
Well,
death
all
experience?
communication, yeah, all communication is vibrational.
Okay.
So even the illusion, my perception. So everything I say is based on my understanding and my perspective of how everything works. And my vocabulary, because I'm limited to using the words that I know, right? Everything is vibration. If you think of it at an atomic level, anybody who remembers their basic science on atoms, atoms are constantly moving and vibrating, and they create a frequency. And everything is made of atoms. We are not this physical body. The physical body is an expression of many factors, but on an atomic level, you can't tell the difference on an atomic level between me and what's behind me until your vibrational frequency slows down enough to where things become solid. And then it's like, oh, that's a screen. This is Sara. Different. But on an atomic level, all you see is a bunch of atoms. Quantum physics is the subatomic, or maybe even the subatomic, because I'm not a quantum physicist. I've studied it. I lightly understand it. I think nobody's told me I didn't. So everything's vibrational frequency. That's how these particles at the quantum level can communicate with each other. And what they've discovered is there is no time at that level. There is no space at that level. So these particles can communicate instantly between here and anywhere else in the universe at any time in the timeline, which is a construct we need in order to operate in 3D reality. But it's still all vibration. So the near-death experience, my experience, because I experience things through vibration. I don't know if the NDEs created that within my cellular level, if I agreed to that. I don't know how any of that works. I have opinions. That's about all I can say. But the result is I perceive things on a vibrational frequency. When I do readings for people, I look at the vibrational frequency and interpret. I don't do future because future can change. You know, you sneeze, it's the butterfly effect. One sneeze can change your entire future, right? Drop your purse at the train station, you can meet someone that you wouldn't have had you not dropped your purse. You know, who knows? It can change. So it's because I was a mathematician, I use the words, it's a probabilities game for the future. So I don't do future, I do probabilities. But yeah, I read, and the probabilities are in the energy frequency. So that's how I was able to, I mean, empaths know empaths. That's how I knew you're an empath, is because of the vibrational frequency. And the fact that we're in two different locations and communicating over a video. So that's the social work.
Zoom meeting.
Meeting, yeah. Because I use telehealth so with my work. But yet I'm still able to tune in to you. Not on a deep level because you didn't give me permission, and I'm not going to violate that. But an empath's vibration is out there for everybody to feel. So it was kind of hard not to pick up. But yeah, it's all vibration, at least the way I interpret it. It's
Okay.
all vibrational frequencies, and the NDEs are all vibrational, just not physical
Okay.
vibration.
Can you explain your NDEs to the audience?
Absolutely. My first memory was actually, I think it was on my 6th birthday, but that was 62 years ago, so I could be wrong. And the person who was driving is no longer with us. But we had a dear friend of the family's was taking me and my younger brother up to visit her parents in the West Virginia mountains. And my grandfather asked her to use his new car for the drive because it had seat belts. Not that we used them in 62, but we had seat belts. And I think it was for my 6th birthday because it was right around my birthday. Anyway, to keep us busy, I was in the back seat without a seatbelt. My brother, who was about 2.5, 2 3/4 of a year, was in the front seat standing up, which, we would go crazy with that now. That person would be arrested, right?
Right,
But in
but
those
that wasn't
days,
the rules back then.
yeah, there were no car seats. I mean, you had a carrier for babies, but that was about it. And no seatbelts. They had seatbelts. It was not yet a law. So to keep us busy, she had us looking for cows on the drive up to where her parents' farm was. Now that's key. She grew up on a farm. She helped drive the tractor and the trucks that did not have power steering. So that takes, I don't even know if people know what lack of power steering, but that takes a lot of effort to
Yeah.
turn the wheel to make it, left or right turn. My grandfather's new car had power steering.
Oh,
Yeah,
new phenomena back then.
right. So, all my brothers and I are highly, in different ways, in different expressions, highly competitive. And I hadn't learned how to temper that at 6. And I didn't understand the difference between a 6-year-old ability and a 2-year-old's ability. So I was competing with my brother to find the cows first, right? Which I successfully did until one cow he saw before I did. And he got so excited, he put his arm out like that and went, see cow, see cow. Problem was, he put it in front of her eyes and it went from right to left. So, of course, those hands turned right to left, but it was power steering. So that was a huge turn. And we went down the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Stopped, I don't know how far down. Now, in those days, I don't know about now, thank goodness, because I haven't had a car wreck. But in those days, we didn't have cell phones. They were just imaginary off of Star Trek, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, People would stop and help. So the windows were open because it was a beautiful summer day. My brother, we think, the way it was explained to me, this is not me being aware of it, but it was explained to me. They think what happened is the driver and my brother both slipped out the windows as the car was going down the hill, end over end or side over side, rolling down. And I was in the back seat. So there were no open windows there.
Mm-hmm.
So I was still in the car. Well, people stopped. They ran to get my brother, of course. I mean, this is what most people would do, and rushed him to the hospital. And then they got the driver and put her in the car and were just about to leave. And she goes, "Where's Sara?" And they're like, "We didn't see anyone else." And she goes, "Well, there's a little girl." So then I don't know how many people, but they started looking for me. I talked with the driver years later, as when I was an adult, because I was trying to piece together information for myself. And she said it was at least 30 minutes, possibly longer, before they even knew I existed. So that's at least how long I was out of it. Now, my awareness when he saw the cow. So this is what I remembered and have always remembered. So I presume it's never changed. So I presume it's an accurate memory. I was shocked that he saw a cow before I did. That was my first thought. How could he have
competitive
found
nature.
How could he have seen that before me? But from a 6-year-old's perspective. And then I remember everything being all jumbled. Our perspective, having had car accidents where my car flipped over, and then everything's, at least that experience, everything slowed down. When I hit the truck that made my car go right side up, I literally saw the metal of the truck crumple this slowly, which we know it was a split second, if that,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It goes, it's done.
Yeah.
But I saw it in slow motion. So our perspective is very distorted when we are traumatized. So that's why we also take it with a grain of salt. It's not truth, it's perspective. Everything in life, in physical life, is perspective. And that in terms of one of the lessons I was taught, that understanding is key to being able to get along with each other. There is no right or wrong. There is no the truth, because our brains don't perceive that way. Our brains interpret input. So there's no reason to fight it with each other because we have different perspectives.
Right. You and I and the listeners, every listener will have a different perspective.
We all interpret it based on our own life experiences.
Right.
So, but that's key to everything I've learned. That's kind of like the bottom line. There is no reason to create discord because we have different perspectives, because that's how the human brain works. So that's like saying, I don't like your nose, I'm going to beat you up because your nose doesn't match what I think it should. It's that ridiculous, right? Okay, so back to the story. My perspective after everything tumbled around was I was very confused because I thought I was underneath the front seat, driver's seat. Not possible in that car. I think the space was like this. I was not that tiny as a 6-year-old. But that was my perspective. And then everything went dark. And all I remember really from that, well, actually, I don't remember anything during that time period where it was dark. I remember being conscious and aware, but no specifics as ever. And I've had hypnosis, and all I've gotten is a sense that I was being, given a whole lot of information. Couldn't tell you what it was or what it was about, nothing. But the next thing I remembered is I'm kind of floating. Now that's my adult interpretation. The child is like, I'm looking down and I'm looking at the driver's seat, and our driver is not in the driver's seat. And I'm going, why isn't this person's name? Why isn't so-and-so in the driver's seat? And then I kind of like, I guess energetically pulled out focus, and I see it's a man. And I think, who is that man? And why is he driving? And then I look to the passenger seat, and there's the woman who was the driver of our car. And I'm like, why is she in the passenger seat? Hey, wait a minute. Whose car is this? This isn't our car. And then I look in the back seat, and there was a woman. I'm guessing it was the man's wife. I don't know. It could have been his sister, his daughter, no clue. But whenever
So you were above the car at this time,
yeah.
when you were above the car. And
Yeah.
so when you felt like you were under the seat looking up, you were obviously out of your body, and it was your spirit that was looking up at the bottom of the seat.
That's what I think.
It was floating.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, and that car was the one that wrecked when I seemed like I was under. And yes, when I became an adult and started researching all this stuff and learned about out-of-body experiences and studied with the books of Raymond Moody, that kind of stuff, it's like, oh, okay, that's what it was. but who knows? That's just an interpretation that makes sense to me. So that's what I go with. Seeing the driver and our driver in the passenger seat, and then the next thing I noticed was this woman in the back seat holding my body, and I'm crying, and I'm like, who is that woman holding me, and why am I crying? And the next thing I know, I'm in my body crying. They, of course, take me to the hospital. I was the only one hurt. I had a broken leg, needed some stitches, and yay, great sixth birthday, right? Um, the emotion I remember is extreme anger. That one, they sent me back because what I remembered at that time is that's a nice place. I'm hurting here. I don't want to be here. Very simplistic for a 6-year-old, 6-year-old there. Not going to go into great language ability, probably.
But when you're referring to they, you're talking about the
light beings.
The light beings. Okay.
Yeah. Very, very angry at being back in a physical body. And two, frustrated because they told me, the light being said, don't talk to anybody about this. Now, when I became an adult, it makes sense. If I'd talked about it, I'd have been institutionalized, which would have been a different life.
Yes.
Right.
So good choice. Yeah. Not to share.
So it's like I've got all this stuff, energy, emotions, thoughts going on inside of me and no way to express it. And I knew things like I understood that the adults were trying to distract me with reading, with cuddling, with magic tricks. And I knew none of it would work because I was grieving so much and not being able to stay wherever that vibrational frequency was. So that was actually my second NDE, but it's the first one I ever remembered. Because I always remembered that. I never forgot any of the details.